This is The Issue, and I am the Ghetto Man. Today's issue: whatever happened to the 56 men that signed the Declaration of Independence? Don't go away. We'll be right back. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. July 4th, 1776, 242 years ago. 56 men signed the Declaration of Independence, kicking off the American Revolutionary War. Soon after, at Lexington and Concord, the shot was fired that was heard around the world, and it was game on. And we all know the rest of this story. Now, when John Hancock signed the Declaration of Independence, he signed his name, as he put it, large enough that the King of England could read it without his glasses. A bold statement indeed. And that's where we get the term, just put your John Hancock right here when we're signing a document. Now, the Commie-crats would have you believe that these 56 men were greedy slave owners and that they were terrorists and that they were just out for themselves. Well, what kind of men were they, really? And what happened to these men? Well, 5 were captured by the British, treated as traitors, and brutally tortured. 9 of them fought in the Revolutionary War for independence and died from wounds from the war or from the extreme hardships that the war brought upon them. 2 of them lost their sons while in the Continental Army. 2 others had their sons captured. At least 12 had their homes ransacked and set on fire. 25 of them were jurists or lawyers. 11 were businessmen or merchants. 9 were farm or large plantation owners. There was a musician, a teacher, a printer. All of these men were educated men of means. They all had a lot to lose, but they signed the Declaration of Independence anyway. They all knew full well that what they were doing would be considered high treason and that the death penalty could be their fate if they were ever captured. John Hancock and his wife, who had just given birth to a baby girl, ran into problems surrounding the trip to Baltimore. She lost the baby girl a few months later. William Ellery risked everything he had when he signed the Declaration of Independence. His house was burned, and all of his property, all of it, was destroyed completely. Richard Stockton was a New Jersey State Supreme Court justice. Now, after signing the Declaration of Independence, when he arrived home, he found that his wife and children were living with friends as refugees. He was also pulled from his bed and beaten by the British soldiers and then thrown in jail, where he nearly starved to death. After his release, he went home to find his house and property looted. All of his possessions had been burned, and his horses had been stolen. And he was so badly treated in prison that he died before the end of the war. He never even got to see how it turned out. Now, the family that did survive, they lived the rest of their life off of charity. Carter Braxton, a wealthy planter and trader, had his ships captured by the British Navy. He had loaned a large amount of money to help the Revolutionary War, and the money was never paid back. In fact, he had to sell his plantations and mortgage other properties in order to pay his debts. Thomas McKeon, the British pursued him relentlessly. He was forced to move his family constantly. He served time in the Continental Congress, And when he did so without pay. And he had to hide his family continually. Soldiers and vandals looted the properties of Livingston, Claimer, Harrison, Hall, and Hopkinson. 17 of the signers lost every single thing that they owned. Everything. Totally destroyed. In 1780, during the Charleston campaign, Arthur Middleton, Thomas Hayward Jr., and Edward Rutledge of South Carolina were taken into custody by the British. They were kept in hideous prison conditions at St. Augustine Prison until they were exchanged 1 year later. Thomas Nelson Jr. stated, "At the Battle of Yorktown, British General Cornwallis took over his home and made it his personal headquarters." Well, Nelson was so distraught over the general taking over his house that he asked George Washington to open fire on it. Washington obliged and blew his house to smithereens. And Nelson, well, he died a bankrupt man. Francis Lewis had his home and properties destroyed as well. His wife was placed in jail for 2 months, and then she died 2 years later. Honest John Hart, a farmer from New Jersey, had to leave his wife's bedside while she was on her deathbed. Think about that for a minute. They had 13 children, and all of them had to flee for their lives. All of Hart's fields, as well as his grist mill, were laid to waste. For over a year, he hid in nearby woods to avoid capture. He didn't know where he would be sleeping next, and he even had to seek refuge in caves. When he finally did make it back home, he was informed that his wife was dead, all of his children were gone, his farm was destroyed, and all of his livestock was gone. He died in 1779, and he never saw his family again. Now, this was the fate of the men who risked everything that they had by placing their signature on the Declaration of Independence. And as you can see, most of these men were like most of us. They had businesses and families just like we do. They weren't radicals. They were just men that valued freedom over tyranny. And as I said before, they were all educated men of means. They all had security, but they valued liberty more. They placed their lives, all of their property, on the line to be free. Eyeball to eyeball with tyranny, they mutually pledged to each other their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor, so that generations to come could live free, so that you and I could live free. Who do you know that would do that today? I know a few. Just look around. We're right back to where we started. Government is out of control, and it seems like there's nothing we can do about it. But what can we do? Well, the one thing that we have today that our founding fathers didn't have is the United States Constitution. It's still the supreme law of the land, whether the commie-crats like it or not. And all I can say to the commie-crats, if you don't like living here, none of you have to stay here. In fact, I've got enough money in my pocket right now to buy any commie-crat a one-way ticket out of here. You don't have to stay here and do it our way, the American way. Today, anti-American extremists, traitorous, communist college professors in these corporate fascist cesspools that we call universities teach our children that our founding fathers were rich, greedy slave owners who were just out for themselves. The corporate-controlled, anti-Constitution, fascist, fake-stream media delivers the same message every day, 7 days a week, 56 weeks of the year. Lies, lies, nothing but lies. I have only one thing to say to you, worthless commie-crat scum. If you don't like it here, you don't have to stay here. The United States of America does not have an out-migration quota. You can leave any time you want to. There are plenty of democratic, socialistic, communistic countries that you can move to today. In fact, I hear that Venezuela is nice this time of the year. You don't have to stay here and do it our way, the constitutional way. If you don't like living in a free constitutional republic, take your anti-American, anti-Constitution, traitorous, commie-crat, democratic, socialistic, communist bullshit and leave. And when you do leave, please don't let the door at the border hit you in your traitorous ass on the way out. I am the Ghetto Man. Thank you for watching. If you're politically correct, then you're legally wrong. And if you're not part of the solution, then you are the problem. And remember, in a free society, playing it safe is the most dangerous thing that you can do. Please subscribe to my channel. Please share.